Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Proper Madness, formerly Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabby, and I give a unique perspective on mental health by providing tools, guidance, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, as well as our past and present experiences, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I get to speak with a variety of individuals from around the world as they share their stories from their journey through their mental wellness so that it helps others stand strong and use their voice. Well, welcome back everyone to Proper Madness. Today I have Maria with me. She has graced me with her presence. I've seen her on social media for a little bit, so I want to have her on.
It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you tell some of my listeners like what you're about, what you do, and all of that.
Sure. So I'm a therapist. I'm a mental health therapist. I'm an LPC and also an LSC. So licensed professional counselor, licensed school counselor. And then my thing is I am also really into fitness. So I add that into my practice and into, my social media page. Like I love the connection between the two. I think that they're so similar. The struggle and then the payoff is just wonderful. So
yes,
a little bit about
that's amazing. I like that. Well, what made you get into fitness for, was it more mental health based first or physical or both?
So that's a good question. I was so young. I was in middle school, so I don't think I realized it was for mental health, but I think it always was. Like I grew up, I had my own mental health issues, which I think a lot of us in this field did, right?
Yeah.
We had to overcome a few of our own things to get to the point where we can help others. And I just realized, like, I would go for a run and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel better. And so yeah, it kind of started back then for me.
Oh, good. That's really cool. That's similar with me too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I did martial arts growing up, like my whole life.
Yeah.
And the release just from that felt so, you feel like you're invincible, which is kind of nice, but it's also a really good outlet.
It is. And I work with a lot of kids in my practice, high school age and college, but once they start exercising or some sort of physical movement activity, they say the same. They're like, oh my gosh, it's this release that just feels so good.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you do with some of your clients, that's something that you kind of incorporate with them is exercise and getting your body moving in some way.
I do. Yeah. We actually, where I work, we have a little walking path right behind. So sometimes I'll even spend a session we're walking and moving, which is great. And then it's different for everyone. If there's physical limitations or whatnot, it can just be like that, going for a walk or some sort of movement. But yeah, I'm just a huge advocate of moving the body to help the mind as well. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your story and like how, you decide to start your platform and what motivated you to do it and link the two together.
Sure. So it's interesting. I saw on your social media you posted about being bullied at a younger age. So similarly, that happened to me in middle school, and I was just thinking sometimes social media can feel toxic and sometimes it can feel really helpful. So I was like, at that point in my life, it would have been so cool to have some sort of account or something where I could like find inspiration or motivation when I was feeling really down and like low. So I was like, when I first started my account, I was like, well, I don't know, I had like 5 followers. I'm like, that's good enough. Okay, it'll affect someone. And then it's growing more, and it's cool to see that. I hope I'm providing that for, people like that,
Yeah. I think having a healthy role model in that way with oh my God, fitness, I think, and social media has become, there's a fine line.
I agree. I probably spend a whole podcast talking about that, right? Yeah.
Probably. I feel like, because as a woman, like you see, everyone has different body types, right? And when you're young and impressionable and you're just getting into fitness to feel good, it can be difficult to then get into fitness to look good, and then the balance is just very hard to maintain. I think I love the way that you do it. You're not, you don't post pictures of like like the aesthetic pictures of the I just
I know what you mean.
I cannot I applaud the women who do that. That must take a lot of courage, but at the same time you got to be careful and mindful of your audience.
I
And like you
agree.
said, yeah, I think like
Thank
you
you so
said,
much.
that role model is key.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, right, because some of the female accounts they show the struggle, and they show like,
Mhm.
well, this is where I started, or this is where I'm at. And they
Yeah,
explain, like you said, everyone's body type's different. But then some of them, I mean, you have to watch if it's photoshopped. You have to I mean, it's hard. It's hard to know what's
yeah,
real out there. So I try to keep it real.
yeah. Well, and it's smart because unfortunately kids have access to social media. So then
Right.
as they grow up and get older, the way that they view themselves is then distorted, right? Because of what they see.
Isn't that true? I know. I think about this a lot, and I talk about this a lot in my sessions with my younger clients. I mean, I think it's really impacted their mental health. I mean, it's
Yeah.
tough. And that's going back to why I wanted something that's just a little more real, and just kind of like like you can still have this and do all these things, but it's not as glamorous as it's like made out to be sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Is that something that you see a lot with younger clients, that they're with social media and their mental health? Like, how have you seen it impact them the most?
Oh, that's a good. Okay, so I think most like the biggest thing right now with that age has been everything with COVID that they've
Mm,
had to deal with. I mean, I saw something recently. It said that the mental health of that age right now is similar to, I think it was in the 60s, where they would be admitted into like a psych ward.
oh my
So it's showing,
gosh.
right, that like now, and that's just normalized. So I think COVID's been a big thing. And then, yeah, almost every one of my younger clients mentions social media. And,
Mm,
I feel like I have to be this certain way, or I get on there and I feel like everyone else is so happy and I'm not. So we
yeah.
talk a lot about how that's social media is that 1% highlight reel. It's not real life, you know?
No, not
It's
at
not.
all. And it sucks because you do like social media in a strange way is building like a brand and a platform, but then you have to have that, like we said, like that balance of being real.
Right.
What's some of the advice that you give some of your younger clients, or like anyone else maybe? Because I do have a little bit of a younger audience, I've noticed. So sometimes I'll get messages in my DMs of, hey, like I'm struggling with this, and there's this girl, and she looks like this, and I look like that. I'm like,
Right.
I don't know. I can't say anything because I'm not a therapist, but what would be some guidelines that you could give the younger audience when they go through that?
Sure. So, I mean, number one, and it's hard to do, but set limits on social media.
Mhm.
And when I tell my clients that, the first thing they say, like, well, I'm gonna just click ignore. So have somebody else put the password in if you have to, that you won't
Yeah.
be able to get. I mean, if it gets to that point. I also say just don't feel guilty like blocking or muting or unfollowing certain accounts. Even if it's a friend, but if it's making you feel bad about yourself, do you
Yeah.
really have to follow that account? I mean, kind of analyzing that. And just knowing too that again, it's a 1% highlight reel.
Mhm.
99% of that person's life isn't being shown.
Yeah.
Most people aren't really talking about their mental health struggles. I mean, I have couples who come to therapy who admit that like earlier that day they posted this lovely photo of themselves on social media, and then they're in my office not in a good place. So it's
Yeah.
if people could see what we see as therapists, like it's not all what it's cracked up to be. It's not all what people portray. So kind of being mindful
Yeah.
of those things.
That's good. That's really good. I'd like to jump back to your story a little bit if you'd like to, if you want to talk about
Sure.
it.
Sure.
When you were bullied when you were younger, how did that impact you and then throw you into fitness and then all the other things?
Yeah. Ooh, this is like, it feels like my therapy session when you talk.
It's okay. I've had people cry, so you know
Oh,
what? Don't
really?
let it happen.
Luckily, I think I'm past the crying point about it, but oh, it was terrible. I mean, I remember, so I went to like a small private Catholic school where everybody knew everybody. And a couple girls decided they didn't like me. I still don't know why. You know how that goes. I never really knew. I just kept to myself. I was very, very shy. I remember they would like throw little pieces of paper in my hair and like just constantly. And I, prior to that, I think was just like, had this like innocent view of life of like, everyone's just nice and this is great. And then that was that moment, you know, during a very vulnerable state anyway, in your adolescent years. But I was like, oh, people aren't so nice. And this just kind of sucks. So I had to get through that. And that's when I was in track. And I just remember like putting it all out there. Like I looked forward to track practice. I looked forward to those meets so much. Like it was just my saving grace. And I was pretty good. I was like, I was pretty fast and I was, you know, so I started to realize I'm like, this is really helpful. And then it wasn't until a little bit later in my life that I got into therapy for myself and was like, oh, this is even more helpful, you know. But since then I always just a combination of the two, I just felt like really helped me. And then, you know, even in my own life, my parents, I had this like picture perfect. My dad was a doctor, my mom stayed at home, la la la. They ended up getting a terrible divorce. All kinds of stuff was going on behind the scenes. So for me, myself too, I had to continue to like, you know, utilize again, the fitness and then the counseling. And it really helped me get through some tough times. So as a therapist now, I like to, I don't know, I think it's good for therapists to have their own struggles so that we can draw upon that to help clients.
I too have noticed that too. One of my recent good friends is a therapist and she also has her own struggles, but some of the advice that she gives is drawn upon how she has overcome some of that, which is really cool. And so it's lovely like when people use what they've been through to help other people. So I think that's a beautiful thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I know. And I think it goes to show that things aren't always what they seem on the outside. So that's another message I just try to convey to my clients too.
That's good. Yeah. And then I know you said that some of the same struggles and almost like the perseverance and adversity of fitness is similar to mental health. How have some of those similarities been for you, or like what are they?
So you can't just walk into a gym and then leave and have the body you want, or right? It's not that easy. Same with therapy. You can't just go to a session and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to be great. It's ongoing. There's going to be really hard times. There's going to be moments you're like, why am I doing this? This sucks. Both. And then, but the payoff is insane. I mean, it's just getting people to stick through both is one of the things I love, because it's hard. It's like, yeah, I know this sucks. Like sometimes I just have to sit with my clients and be like, this is tough. This is tough to process trauma. This is tough. Similarly, like explaining how, you know, when you're at the gym, it's going to be tough. There's going to be tough moments, but it's worth it, you know?
Yeah. And I'd say what that consistency and discipline that it takes to stick through with any fitness goal, whether it's hitting a new PR and like pushing through that mental block. Because I mean, I'd say about maybe 50 to 60% of what we go through, it's all here. Yeah. Like you limit yourself based off of how far you actually want to go. So yeah, I completely resonate. I had very similar, like with my fitness journey. It was like so many different reasons. I did like a whole video and on it actually recently. And I talked about my like body dysmorphia and body image. That was huge for me. But when I was in a healthy place with fitness and my mental health, the parallels were very strong. Like you said, it was showing up for myself every single day at the gym, even if maybe I didn't really necessarily want to go, but still pushing through and going, okay, you know what? No, I'm doing this for myself and this is where I'm going. That's the same with your mental health. Do you think people think it's either there's a quick fix to it, or there's a how to cure depression in like 5 steps, and you're like, no,
only were that
absolutely not.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah, it takes consistency showing up with both those things. So,
and to your point, I tell some of my clients, right, they're like, I want to join a gym, but I'm just so either intimidated or just too depressed. And I tell them, you know what, let's make it, the first goal is just drive to the gym. Maybe you get out of the car and maybe you don't, right? And it's just like taking some of that pressure off of that like final and, you know, like result. And it's just, okay, I'm just going to focus on this part of it. And 9 times out of 10 they get out of the car and go in, but it's just like, hey, let's just alleviate some of that and just focus on the small things and see what happens. So I feel like mental health is the same way too. Like you said, like 5 steps. Okay, no, let's just focus on getting out of bed today, you know, something small. So yeah, that's the other thing with social media. Even when I created this account, it was like, okay, I have to remember I'm not going to take it too seriously and be like, oh my gosh, I only got like 10 likes. I was like, this, I'm putting stuff out there that's hopefully going to help 1 or 2 people. And if it's more than that, great. But I think that a lot of people get caught up with like, I mean, I know people who are like, I posted a reel that I worked really hard on and then I deleted it because it wasn't doing well or whatever. So, and with the mental health, it's like, do you need that external validation or are you doing it for yourself just because it's fun and it feels good? And that's a struggle too that I see with a lot of my clients too, with that.
The external validation.
Yeah,
that is huge. I just got like goosies when you said that, because that's actually something I struggle with, I think still, but with not conscious of it.
Same probably.
It's tough. It's really tough to be a creator and put things out there, especially in the mental health arena. I think it's very different than like everyone else with the fitness or music or something else. That those audiences, it's a little quicker for them to catch on. With mental health, it's a little bit more of a niche. I think you really have to hone down on what you want to provide and what your unique aspect of mental health is. But then, you do have that external validation, like, okay, because I battle with it. I go, all right, larger purpose is to help people and be that voice for someone who I wish I had, like you said, when I was younger. But at the same time, you do get caught up like, oh, I only got this many likes, or there's only this many people subscribed to my channel. Maybe I shouldn't take it seriously. So it's like a huge, and then you start creating for the views and the validation, not necessarily what you enjoy doing.
Yeah. And then that's where it gets tricky because it's like, who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
So how do you, okay, so I'll ask you a question. So then how do you work through some of that because I feel like I do some similar things with external validation. So how do you work through not caring as much or whatnot?
I'd say it's been recently that I've stopped caring. I think before it was very much like I felt like I had something to prove to the world. Okay. And I kind of stopped and took a deeper look and was like, okay, who in my life am I trying to prove something to? Is it like someone, like a parent, maybe from my past, from when I was young? Is it someone I have like some sort of unresolved trauma with? And I found it was very much the unresolved trauma. It was because I was bullied too. And I've had a couple abusive relationships. So for me, it was like, oh, I'm trying to prove to these people that I can be successful, when reality is that's not why I started this platform. It became more of trying to be, quote, famous and well liked and popular to then gain views and then get monetized, as opposed to taking a step back and going, okay, what do I want to create and what do I think is going to help someone who's looking at their phone? I took down so many of my videos from my YouTube channel previous to me having that epiphany, because I was like, ooh, these don't feel, not that they weren't genuine, but it just didn't feel like me. And it wasn't authentic anymore. So I had to take a step back and go, okay, who am I? What do I want? What's my mission? That's it. So I check myself sometimes, because I do have to take a step back and go, okay, what am I putting out here and how is it going to help someone else? Even if I'm posting like pictures of myself, I still think ahead with the captions and go, okay, well, if I post like a really cute selfie, but then the caption is something really deep, that's not going to make any sense. So, so trying to find like a happy medium.
Right.
It
And it's
just being
hard.
meaningful. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
difficult.
That's a great point too, because then I feel like, especially as women, right, we preach like be confident and do, post the selfies, do all that. And then we question it like, okay, is this going to come off some type of way? Does this look like I'm conceited? Does this look right? And it's
Yes.
finding that balance. And like you said, like the caption has to be just, and it's kind of a shame that that's where we're like, we've been made to feel, I don't know, again, I feel like we're talking a lot about social media today, but that's like such a, right? Like
Yeah.
that such a big part of our world right now. So it's like finding that balance. And like you said, just figuring out what makes you, like each person has to figure out what makes them feel good, like their presence on there, and then how to navigate that.
Yeah. I think navigating that is, I mean, it's tough because social media is such a huge beast of a thing to approach. And
So,
I think setting that password though is smart and having someone else know it. I might
yeah.
do that
Yeah.
because I'm the one who ignores it. I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
like
go back.
never mind. I know. And then the other thing that I found helpful, and then some of my clients have too, is to give yourself a detox, whatever that looks like. Even if it's just one full day, or sometimes it's like, let's start small, maybe 2 hours. I won't like open my social media. Some clients are able to just do like cold turkey a whole week. And then you kind of come back in like a different headspace and you kind of have that chance. And then maybe that's when you'll realize, oh, wait, okay, I am going to like delete this account, or I am going to mute this. Like it wasn't serving me. I was so much better, and kind of balancing what works for you. Again, kind of with that balance and the boundaries.
Do you have to set boundaries yourself with, like, what are some of the struggles that you have with, like, personally with social media and what you see?
So yes, I do. I do have to set boundaries. I mean, again, I'm just, since my son just came down, I'll use this as the example, but being a mom, sometimes it's like my escape. And even as like a therapist, or really any career, it's like you can just log onto social media and not have to think about all the other stuff, and you're just scrolling and it feels nice. But then when we're not aware of like the things that we're consuming, then how that's affecting us, our mental health throughout the day. Like you might be like, oh, and then I'll see a mom's account or posting these lovely pictures with her kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm like trying to avoid my kids right now. I feel terrible. Like maybe I should. So I mean, I have to set those boundaries, being like, okay, I am a good mom. I need a break. And this is what I'm doing. Some reframing. I do CBT a lot in my practice. So I'll do that to myself too, where I just acknowledge what I'm feeling and then reframe and make sure that I'm, acknowledging a positive aspect, that I don't get caught up in the negativity. So yeah, just setting boundaries, whether it's, sometimes my husband will make the password. Can't get on it after a certain point. Just kind of like having those boundaries and that separation.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I think because no, I followed you the whole way. I have really bad ADD, so I got you.
Okay.
Yeah. I also found out I was a highly sensitive person, so I pay attention.
That on your page.
And it was it was interesting because then afterwards, the benefit of social media is I went and was like, I wonder. So I went on Instagram, I was like, I wonder if there's people who like talk about this. And I found a whole community, and I sat there and I was like, oh my God, I've never felt more understood in my life. I think I posted that too. I was like, holy hell.
Yeah. Yes, I saw that. Right. And then that's right. That's where social media can be great. And that's what I love about, the reels and whatever we post, like the hashtags and all this like anxiety awareness. And I'll be like so deep in some of those hashtags, just like, oh my gosh, because there's such a community there, like everybody can come together and have that support is really nice too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I noticed some of the like the downsides of, like, I think the labels that are put on stuff like this is then, oh Lord, everyone has like, and then everyone goes, oh, I'm that too. And you're like, whoa, okay. It's gonna like negate the people who are actually in it. And you're like, what the heck? I was talking about that with my brother actually. is
Yeah.
like the dangers of don't want to say mental health labels. I feel like that's the wrong word, but sometimes the dangers of like mental health being so popular right now is great, and it's amazing because it's bringing awareness to people who really truly struggle.
Right.
And but then you have the people that use it as an excuse, and you're like sitting there going, but the rest of us have worked so hard to make this normal, and now you're taking it and making it a whole like a
Yeah.
victimization thing. And I'm going, no, like,
Right.
sorry,
That's
total
no, I
tangent.
mean, that's actually, and as you were saying that, I mean, this is probably a whole other tangent, but it's been so relevant lately, like with what happened at the Oscars. And I just feel like making excuses on both ends. Like, I'm not taking teams or side, but I think that as a therapist, I don't know if you felt the same way watching that whole thing go down. It's like
Oh,
so concerning of the mental health issues,
yes.
right? But then I've seen things where it's like, well, that makes it okay if they're, I don't know. So then
Oh, yeah, using it as a kind of like a cop out, like, oh,
yeah,
but he's unwell, so it's okay.
it's okay for this and this and I
Like,
mean, and
no.
again on both sides. Isn't that
Yeah.
was why I didn't watch it, but I was on Instagram. I probably should have had my timer that night, but I was just scrolling, and then of course like seeing what had happened, and I stayed up probably like an hour and a half later than I should have that night, because first of all you're like, is this a joke? And then as a
Yeah.
therapist, once you realize it wasn't, it was like, oh my, like that's heavy. And social media, it's all over, and you're starting to see some of those excuses, some of those comments, and it's just
Oh,
like, it's a lot.
it is a lot. I dated someone a while ago who their employee had brought like an unsafe weapon to work,
Mm,
and because so this man, I don't know what all the stories you're telling about this specific coworker was exactly what you said. It was like there are certain people who use the excuse of being mentally unstable or mentally ill for toxic behavior,
yeah.
and um, they avoid actually doing the work on themselves, even if that might be the case. But they just kind of like to stay in like a victim mindset, as opposed to trying to, I mean, in my opinion, if you want to change and you want to get help, you do at least try, and you ask for help to some degree. Some
Right,
people just don't know how to ask for help, and that's different.
right,
But
right.
I'd say the victim mindset are like the people who just try to use mental health as an excuse, as a cop out all the time. Like this man was taking, I think, a bunch of sick days from work, claiming mental health. His work performance was poor. He was always making excuses as to why he was making mistakes, and would blame it on mental health or blame it on his medication. And it was just like there's a fine line with that
Yeah,
stuff,
for
but
sure.
at the same time, like yeah, unfortunately, like makes people who really do suffer. It desensitizes it too much.
I agree. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then that would be one of the probably cons about it being, like you said, popular, but it sounds silly to say, but it is
Yeah, it's the
popular right
wrong
now,
word,
right?
but
It is. But then
yeah.
as therapists, and I use humor all the time too. I use it in my practice. It's just part of my personality. But so I never thought I'd be the type that's like, well, wait, whoa, like
Yeah.
this is actually really serious. And I feel like I don't know, it takes away some of the humor aspect too, then when it's like there are people that are really, really struggling, and some people, like you said,
Yeah.
it's a shame when that gets used
Yeah, it
much, when it
is.
really shouldn't be, the case. But it's hard. It's a very sensitive topic, mental health.
It is. So
It
there's like so many, there's so many, I don't know, like politically correct
right.
terms that you have to use, and
Yeah.
how you phrase things. And
Correct. Yeah.
even with anything, honestly, I think there's like like my brain's blanking, like a
Like
line.
a, like a line that you don't cross.
Yeah, yes,
Right.
100. I have to watch because I have such dark humor, like really dark humor. So I have to
Trauma.
watch what I say. No, it is, that's for sure. I feel like if you've been through some stuff in your life, you're like, I have an appreciation for this.
The dark humor. I know, and sometimes if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So I mean, yeah, I get it too. It's a fine line, right? Like you said.
100%.
But yeah, those are some good points. I mean, yeah, I love how we like each topic went to like the next place, but it's all
right?
Interesting. So yeah.
Well, I think it's like bringing to light topics that no one likes to open the door to because they're too scared of like how people are going to react, or oh, you shouldn't say that. I'm like, no, you probably should. Someone should probably say something.
Yeah,
you know,
who needs to say it? I mean,
oh God.
Do it. I guess the last thing because anytime I meet an adult like similar whatever who was also bullied as a kid, I kind of am curious about their story and how that affected. Like, do you think that shaped you into who you are? Kind of sort of like you asked me earlier, right? Like,
yeah, I like that you asked me that. Yeah, no, I'd say I was only bullied by boys, not women. So I grew up always seeking external validation from men, which was fun. Not really. I was like replaying that trauma all the time of wanting to feel good enough. Because when I was bullied by boys at that age, I assumed it was always because they didn't like me. There's something wrong with me, because they would poke fun at me, but then like all these other girls they would be enamored by. And I thought, okay, like, why am I not getting that attention? I'm getting just picked on all the time. I also went to a private Episcopalian school.
Oh, there's
yep. So I was like, oh, but yeah, everyone knew everyone. It was suburbs. I didn't have the most diverse school. So culturally I was like made fun of a little bit because I looked different. I had hair in places that other girls didn't have hair in. I wasn't allowed to shave my legs till like, God, my parents like, you can't shave anything until you're like 13, 14. And I was like, what? Like, I have to, otherwise I'm gonna, you don't understand what's happening at school. Yeah, that was always a struggle too. And my body didn't like develop until, God, maybe, end of high school, early college. I was a very late bloomer.
Yeah, I'm similar. There's a few similarities. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but yeah, it definitely shaped me into who I am because I'd say the male validation was quite heavy, and I felt unworthy of certain types of men that looked a certain way, just based off of my past experiences of being bullied. If they like resembled a certain type of guy that maybe bullied me when I was younger, I'd kind of like steer clear of those types of guys. So
yeah, that's that trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's better now. And I think having children and being a therapist and all of that has certainly helped. But for the longest time, if I walked by a group of people, and this is even like as an adult, if I walked by a group of people laughing or, just kind of looked off, I would get paranoid that they were talking about me, or all the way back to when I was like, 13.
I had the same.
It's the same thing. Yeah. And it's some of my clients, when they have similar things, they're like, but that can't be right, because that was so long ago. It's like, no, that's your trauma. It's being stored. And I love to do, I don't know if you've ever done or had done inner child work.
All the time.
Oh, it's my favorite. It is my favorite. I do it with myself and with clients who are, are in similar situations, because it doesn't matter how old we are. If we're all just kids that grew up, and that kid is still there. So that those feelings, like you said, with certain men avoiding, me thinking people are talking about me. I mean, that's very real. And
that's actually so interesting you say that, because it highlights something that I just realized that I need to tackle. But I have the same thing too. If men are staring at me for like a prolonged period of time, my automatic response is, am I worried? Like, is there something weird? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. And that's that distortion that was created from that past trauma. And it's hard to navigate though too. It's like,
it is, because
right?
it makes me oblivious to anyone who's actually interested in me, and I'm like, I just run. I'm like, I don't know, you were staring at me for a long time. I thought maybe you thought I was weird. They're like, no. I'm like,
I know. And it is obviously like on the exterior, right? You're gorgeous. And I feel like you probably hear that a lot too, but then it's just like, so people would be like, oh, well, certainly you must know a man's flirting. Yeah. Right. But then
no idea. Yep. No clue. I automatically assume they think like I think that they think the opposite because of my trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that actually until you said that. I was like, hang on.
Went off. Yep. It's crazy. I know there's so much with that, which is why this profession is so needed. I mean, people don't even realize their traumas, and it's just even helping, like having the ability to help people realize, oh yeah, that was pretty bad trauma. I need to resolve that. Right? Like kind of the first step, and then they like this huge weight gets lifted, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
If anyone listening has resonated with your story or anything that you've said, what is some advice that you would like to give them?
Ooh, what kind of advice I'd like to give them? So if they've resonated with any piece of anything, just that, it gets better once you recognize maybe, certain traumas and what's actually happened to you. And you kind of have to get to that acceptance point first, which a lot of us are in denial. It's like, oh no, I'm so strong. This didn't affect me. Kind of have to acknowledge that maybe things are affecting you. Find what works for you. Again, for me, it's movement, fitness, all of that. Find, a good therapist, and there's hope. You can heal. And I think that's like the main message I would like to send. So
of course, you're an amazing lady. You should just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.